Yeah, we are live.
Hi everyone, I'm Varadhi from Careers 360 and I welcome you all to this session on how important is it for you to learn to code. So in the recent years, there has been a lot of conversation about the importance of coding, at what age one should begin to learn coding, um, and what are the career options that coding entails. So to answer all these questions which you may have about coding, we have with us our speaker for today, Mitul Bit, founder and CEO of Coditas. Hi Mitul, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Before I request Mitul to take over a little more about him. So Mitul believes that programmers are artists and that the code they write is their art. Thereby, he co-founded Coditas with an aim to promote clean coding and change the perception about Indian coders globally. He holds a BTech in Computer Science and Engineering from IIT Bombay. Prior to co-founding Coditas, he was heading the software services division at Omniscient, where he was instrumental in building the team and growing the business. He has also worked as senior solution architect at Gemstone. Mitul has been delivering quality and functional software solutions for more than a decade, but strongly believes that his tech journey has just begun. With this, I would request Mitul to address the attending students, and then we will throw the floor open for questions and answers.
Thank you very much, Varadhi. So for those of you who heard the introduction, I'm sure you would have already got the answer to the question over here. Should you learn coding? Based on my background and my passion around coding, I'm totally biased to say yes. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind that you're talking to a biased person who loves coding. And my opinion is going to be around that. So I wanted to have a very brief preliminary input to this before I go to an actual Q&A, because I want to have more time. I want to have more time in answering questions that you have around this as opposed to anything else. So very simply put, I usually answer this. This is a very frequently asked question to me, and I usually try to change the word coding with mathematics. Is it important for you to learn mathematics? That's the way I look at it, right? Of course, it's an exaggeration, but the reason I want to paraphrase it that way is because it underlines my opinion about this. To me, learning coding is not for you to become a software developer. You don't learn mathematics to become a mathematician. You learn mathematics so that you can have life. You can, in any career that you get into, it's going to help you. It is a life skill. It is a skill for all careers. It is a piece of knowledge you need. Okay, you may not want to go in depth, but understanding the basic concepts and being able to program or being able to code, in my personal opinion, in today's world is a necessity, right? Just to underline that point, again, I want to make sure that you understand the difference between coding and becoming a software developer. To learn coding does not mean that you are aspiring to be a software developer. Once you are clear about that distinction, then it is a no-brainer for you to start thinking that coding is necessary. Whichever field you get into, you want to go into accounts, finance, coding is necessary. One of the most used tools in the finance world is Excel. Excel has something called macros. Macros is code. You have to write code for that. You go into biomedical, you go into DNA, you're going to be writing complex models, which will require code to be written in the background, which will need you to write code finally. That's the most important part, if you realize. So if the question is as simple as, should I learn coding? The answer is yes. Because if you ask yourself, do you need mathematics? Yes, you need. Again, I'm not talking about necessarily integration, differentiation, calculus, or the high level stuff, but you need basic arithmetic. You need basic geometry. But all that is basic for all. I see very less fields where you don't need coding. In fact, graphic design, right? In a lot of those areas, there is involvement of scripting behind the scene. Animation requires understanding of coding, right? At some degree. At the end of the day, you should not treat it only from a perspective of a dedicated career. And if you are clear about that, then it's relatively simple for you to make the judgment of whether you want to be coding or not, right? So that's the way I look at it. That's as simple as that. So I think that's my opinion about it, right? And if you want to become a software developer professionally or in any other way, then of course it's a no-brainer, right? Then coding is needed. But anyway, otherwise, I strongly believe personally that coding is needed as part of your education, as part of your knowledge, as part of a skill that you should have in whichever career you go ahead. So that's my opinion, and I'm now open to answer any questions that you guys have.
All right. So whoever wants to ask any questions from Mitul, I would ask you to please use the reaction button and raise your hand, and we'll unmute you and give you a chance to ask.
Yeah.
Till then, Mitul, I have a few questions with me which we received from students. So I would like to put them forward.
Sure.
So the first question is, say I am a school student in high school. Please explain what coding would mean to somebody in layman terms.
Coding in layman terms is basically being able to talk to a computer in a way computer understands, to be able to do tasks repetitively and faster, right? So anything which you can instruct a machine to be able to execute things in a sequential or logical manner to get executive output that you want, to take some input, act on it, and get a desired output. As simple as that. The code will enable to do that.
Okay. So Priyanksha wants to know that if one has to just begin to learn coding, what will be the best way to go about it?
The best way to go about it, in my personal opinion, is going online. And there are quite a few tools and freely available courses online. For example, Codecademy is one which I have used multiple times in the past. The best part about it, it's a self-paced, you literally, and assumes you as a zero programmer. Codecademy is one. Code.org is another one. And if you don't, if you wanted more fun, and if you're slightly younger, there's a product called Scratch developed by MIT, which introduces you to coding in a very nice way, in a graphical format, and makes you understand the concepts of coding very well.
All right. So is there a way a non-maths student can also learn coding?
Yes, in my personal opinion, there is no background required to learn coding. What coding requires is logic more than anything else, which most human beings are already very good at. Okay, so it's being human means you are logical in most cases. So logic is the most important thing. Of course, being able to operate a computer, being familiar with a natural language, which is typically English, are prerequisites. If you are good at a natural language like English, if you are logical, you can code. It's simple as that.
Okay. So the question from Anmol, he asks that the computer science and IT field is something that has new innovations and inventions every year. So how should one stay updated, and how should one decide what fits?
Right. So, like, to be very specific, what keeps on evolving very fast is a high-level languages and high-level programming aspects, the application layer. What is fundamental in concepts is not evolving as fast. So what you need to understand is how things work at a fundamental and conceptual layer if you're really serious about getting into this from a career perspective and you're becoming long-term into it. So, in my personal career and my profession, when I'm taking an interview, I like to focus more on that. I really want to know if the person's concepts are clear. So I typically even ask people to the level of how does a programming line get till the real output, right? And various layers it has to go through, and various aspects around it. The clarity of that helps you a lot, right? You focus on the concepts, and whenever new languages or new frameworks come up, it's very, very easy to adapt. Personally, I coded very actively almost more than a decade ago, right? At that time, the languages frameworks were very different. But today, when I sit with a team member, when they're working on a new programming language, all that, it's very, very easy for me to catch and work with them immediately. right? There are multiple. I don't need, like, if you bring me a brand new language to work on today, within 2-3 days, I'll be able to work on it, because all concepts are largely similar. The way you communicate is what keeps on changing a bit here and there, but high level concepts are similar. The concepts also keep on evolving, so you need to be updated. There's no question about you read once and forget about it. Of course, you need to keep on updating, be aware of the latest. There are various architectures which keep on coming on, right? So as you evolve, you'll come to hear about something called service-oriented architecture, right? That's an architecture which came up more than a few decades ago. The various forms of which has been evolving keeps on changing. Like, it has now finally come down to a mode called microservices and microfront. But it's still service-oriented architecture, separation of concerns, right? The high-level architecture, high-level concepts stay the same. Then within those, micro front ends and microservices change. Then within those also you could see, how the interactivity between the front ends and back ends, and the various technologies, and how state is being managed. A lot of finer, smaller concepts keep on coming. New concepts will come. You understand things at the conceptual level, understand the why of everything, and you will be able to, be updated more easily. Now, there's no substitute to staying updated than, of course, reading and being on top of it. But it's not necessary that you keep on doing that also. As long as your concepts are strong and your fundamentals are very clear, then you do that. Focus on that more than anything else.
Thanks, Mithul. So I would now ask Gauri to please take over. Gauri, you have
Yes. So there is this one thought that comes to mind, that in the last 2 years, when the children were, sitting at home, we saw a lot of commercials and advertisements talking about how coding is a great deal, and train your children, train your young child into coding. We do it on a one-on-one basis, or 4 children in a class, everything through Zoom, and so on and so forth. So how young is too young to learn coding? At what is the right age that you would say coding should be introduced to a child?
Right. So there are 2-3 parts to your question. Number one is the commercialization and the ads. Okay. And I like to separate that out because I don't want a confusion or a correlation between the three. So the first part is, when the examples of Whitehead Jr., let's just name them, right, who are out there pushing advertisements and all that. There were 2 aspects to it. One of that was an exaggeration aspect, right, whereby their ads are over-exaggerated, and they were trying to push their product and their idea, which is clearly sales. Okay, so I no way subscribe to that personally. Right? So my opinion on that was a company selling their service and product. We should be aware of that very clearly. You don't need that. You don't necessarily need. But what I'm talking about inherently is what is needed is the product itself in any form. The service in any form. There is much better freely available content than what they were trying to push, as far as I know. Okay, I don't have too much details around it. So let's separate out the commercial aspect. Okay, now whether you learn from a paid course through a one-to-one online or a part of a larger curriculum, all that is a separate thing. The main part over here is coding. Do you want to learn coding, or do you want to understand coding? So that is the first part. And the channels to learning is various. My personal opinion, freely available tools are there, and actually in a lot of cases much better. So use that. Number 2, how young is young? I'm not very sure about that myself yet. But as I said, as long as you can operate a computer well, you can be logical enough and be having fun while doing it, go for it, right? So I've seen and heard about very young kids, even from age 6, do it well. See, there's a difference between, I added the part, as long as you're enjoying and having fun, right? So it should not be enforced by the parents to achieve a career goal or their future from it. I don't think that is the way we should look at it. The way we should look at it is the child getting knowledge. Is the person getting knowledge? Is this going to help them build their knowledge for their overall career? You're not teaching them coding at the age 6 to become software developers or programmers or start earning at the age of 10. That is the wrong way of looking at it. But them starting to learn programming or coding at the age 6, there's nothing wrong with it. It's like teaching them mathematics at that age. Again, that's why my earlier simple way of looking at it is replace coding with mathematics and in a different way. Look at it as a skill which is going to assist you in life, right? And don't necessarily commercialize it. Don't necessarily have a pressure on the child to do it. Okay. Maybe I also should answer the counter to it. Would you do fine without coding? Yes, of course you will do fine without coding, right? As in, it is not a necessity as such. It's not a necessity from a perspective of living life, but it is definitely a good to have. You'll definitely get an advantage in your own career, whichever career it is, when you know it. It's a good skill to have for your betterment, right? You may not end up enjoying it, and that's why we are not saying you go for a career. But tomorrow, when you'll have in your own career, it can be biomedical, it can be anything in the world, you will encounter needs for it. It will help you do something faster. It will help you produce output faster. Or theoretically, I'll give you another example, right? You become a startup founder. You're a CEO. You want some tech developed. If you have understood that background, you'll be able to guide that better, right? So different aspects, it's always going to be helpful. The world is moving towards tech. The world is going to consume programmatically produced outputs, right? And understanding that is very important for you more than anyone else. The other thing is that a lot of people assume they don't like coding before even trying coding, right? That's another thing which I always want. So why don't you first try it out? Give it your best shot. Why don't you do? I have seen so many examples whereby people have started enjoying coding after knowing, but when they were hearing about coding, there was this stigma, there was this fear around, coding being this, giant monster, which is gonna, be stressful for them. It's not going to help them. But if taken in the right way, in the right approach, it's going to be helpful. So no harm in getting undergoing a basic course, understanding. You enjoy more, you go more deeper.
Correct. So it's almost like a follow-up where the question that arises next is, not every child wants a career in coding, right? But we know that it is a skill that every child should have to a certain degree develop, up to a certain level. How is that coding, that kind of degree going to help in brain development? Like, how is that much of learning coding helps in brain development?
So I don't know the scientific basis of it, honestly, but any learning is good learning. Okay, any learning contributes to brain development. Now, in this case, this is development of logic, development of the logical part of your brain. Now, this is my assumption, right? Since I don't have scientifically related studies to back this up, so I won't quantify it properly. But any learning is going to develop your brain further. And this is basic learning, which is definitely going to help your overall development. I'm pretty confident about that. Right? So I would take it in the spirit of learning something first, right? Before then going into. So it's definitely going to help in your brain development. No question about it. How much, where, which part, I don't know too much about it right now. But will it help? Yes, definitely. It need not be done for your career in software development is one thing which we should underline and understand very well right now.
Thank you. Bharati?
Yeah. So, Mithul, can you elaborate a bit on how coding has penetrated the industry today? From all the venues where it is being applied?
Right. So there are various ways of looking at it, but simply put, it's growing very rapidly. So basically, let's not talk coding only. Let's say software, right? Because coding creates software. Code creates software. Software is almost everywhere. In your day-to-day, you are interacting with software on everything you do. Right now, we are working on Zoom. This is the software, right? Whether you log on to your when you switch on your TV and or you go to Netflix, that's a software, right? Any app is software. right? So digitization and user of software is constantly increasing at a very rapid pace. The one of the simplest ways of to look at it is in the job market, right?
Hmm.
In the last couple of, I think more than a decade, one of the highest in demand professions
Hmm.
is a software developer. And going forward, by all predictions, for the next 2 decades, that's going to be the same. The highest salaries are there. So the demand for this particular skill is amongst the highest in the world, right? So that whenever there's a very high salary and a very high, it clearly shows a difference in demand and supply. So there is a much higher demand for that particular skill than the supply. And the demand is high because of the rapid increase in the need of software creation. In fact, here is an additional statistic for you. During the pandemic, right, for our own company, I'll tell you about my own company, right, Coditas, we had a team of around 350 people working for us. And post-pandemic, from March 2020 to March 2022, our team size is 700. We doubled the team size of our company in the pandemic.
Okay.
Why? Because if you realize, pandemic created a sort of a catalyst or an acceleration point for technology, right? Everyone saw the need for digitization. Everyone saw how digitization is going to help, right? Everyone has experienced this entire, everyone, like, I would say most of people pre-pandemic were not even aware of Zoom, for example.
Right.
A lot of people were not even aware of e-commerce, for example, right? Pandemic forced us to start using online tools to communicate. Pandemic forced a lot of us, or even not us, most of us were already doing it, but you look at your maybe grandparents, for example, or they started using these tools, and then if they were staying alone, they were forced to start using online tools to get deliveries, right? So overall, and this phenomenon is not localized to India or to your locality, it was a global thing, right? So digitization needs increased drastically, and the need for software was there. So software essentially brings a lot of things to the table, right? It enables you to do things faster and at a lower cost, right? And that everyone realized. So although globally in pandemic, all businesses went down, right? Like almost every area of business was seeing a downward trend because of various reasons around lockdown, around COVID and all that. Software industry saw a reverse trend.
Okay.
It's one. So like pandemic created an acceleration and the demand peaked, right? So every company like TCS used to hire, I don't know, 20, 30,000 engineers per year. They started doing 50, 60,000 a year. Salaries doubled, and that's another point, right? So you look at Coditas payroll, March 2020 and March 2022, the same people, the salary has 2x, literally. I'm not like 2x minimum, and I'm not exaggerating, this is actual data.
Okay.
Right. So there is absolutely no question in my mind that from a career perspective, from a monetary perspective, from a demand perspective, there is any slowdown or any concern around software development as a career now or for the next 2 decades. I can put it in writing as well, right? So that helps you answer the question in a different way, that the demand for software is increasing crazily, right? Here's one more way of looking at it. What are the top 5 companies in the world today? Right? Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla.
Right.
What's common amongst them? What was a driver? Technology.
Right.
Right? Tesla might be a solar power car, but one of the larger driving forces is their software.
Right.
Everyone else is software. The biggest reason why they're growing so rapidly is because software can scale, can replicate. You don't need additional humans to scale out. So that's the power of software. That's the power of technology. And that's not going to change. That's going to increase further. So if you want to look for a career which is high growth, high impacting, Software is definitely one of the careers. Again, I'll put a disclaimer up front. As I said earlier, please remember, I am super biased. This is a field I love. Coding is something I love. So you will get a very biased opinion in that, but you're getting some data points around it additionally.
Right. And we are really enjoying this. So anyway.
One more last part to this is what I love about software is that you can be seated in Pune working for a client in Japan, impacting everyone in US. Right? If you see a product like, which is one of the largest used products today, WhatsApp, right? Used by a few billion people. It was made by less than 50 people overall. 50 people impacting a billion. So each person impacting more than a few 100 million people or a few tens of millions of people. Like that's the kind of impact you create, right? I have written software code. So I personally, I'll give you. So I wrote some software code, which is finally in IRCTC. IRCTC is a railway booking site. So every time you book a ticket, because the code I wrote, it will pass through my code. And that's a sense of pride I have. Okay. No matter how much money or world make, this pride is very different. This sense of achievement is very different. That I am impacting every ticket. There was a time before, a lot of you, I'm not sure now will realize or not. But there was a time IRCTC was the largest e-commerce platform in India. Okay. And there was a time, a decade and a half ago or two, getting an IRCTC ticket was considered an achievement. It was crashing half the time, and then what we built in went into the upgrade, and it started becoming more stable and all that. So I'm, that simple point is one of my achievements, which I talk about very proudly, right? So I'm just giving you the sense of achievement you get by impacting a lot. Very few careers will have you allowed to impact such a large population in such a simple way. All you need to be able to achieve what you want is a laptop and an internet connection. That's it.
Right.
Everything else is freely available. Everything is genuinely freely available. You don't need to do a paid course. You don't need to buy paid licenses. A lot of software is available free. All you need to do is be good at Googling for those things. Sorry.
Right.
But yeah, I hope it covered everything.
So in line with this, Mitul, artificial intelligence and Internet of Things and machine learning, they have gradually begun in becoming a part of our everyday lives, right? And these are popular terms among students also, and students look forward to taking up jobs in these fields. So is coding an essential part of these, and how?
Yeah, unquestionably. Everything is powered by code. Everything is powered by code. So there's no as in workaround to that. You might hear about low code, no code. It's still evolving. So and these are super difficult problems, right? I'm assuming most of the attendees on this call are high school, so they still might not have the exposure of what the complexity is here. But I'll give you a couple of examples, right? Solving a problem in artificial intelligence and where we are today is super. When I was in college, just us being able to translate an audio clip into text. We knew the challenges are super high. And today, when you speak into Google Home or rather your voice chat and you say the text out, it's magic. But you don't understand the complexity. The complexity are even from as simple as when you're speaking, how do you identify words? Because as humans, we are able to process it in a single stream of an audio clip. When represented, it's super difficult. And AI has been able to break that so fast and so well. AI has really, really evolved. Just simply taking an image and extracting text out of it is a super hard problem. Without AI solving that was super challenging. And that's now coming. So AI is the future is now no longer a doubt for me. Okay. AI taking over a lot of things no longer. It's a matter of time. Okay. So there is no question about what AI can do and cannot do. AI is going to take over a lot of things over a period of time. The time duration on when it will take over is the question. But whether it can or not, in fact, I was a skeptic, because 20 years ago, when you're trying to use phone command, voice command, and you say something and the system predicts something else, it's evolving and becoming good so fast. I'm just assuming you guys are a much younger generation. You probably don't appreciate the earlier days when these things were broken, and now it's much, much better, and it's evolving at a very fast pace. So AI is definitely going to increase. Machine learning, data science, all the keywords you hear, right? They're all real, and they are all going to change the world more drastically and more faster, right? In fact, this also underlines the need for you to be tech savvy, right? Earlier, and I'll give you my personal example, right? I grew up in a small town, not in India, in Africa, and everyone around me was a great trader. So Indian trading community, I grew up amongst them, and I never saw anyone with good education doing better than the traders. Or knowledge, right? So the mindset I developed at that point of time, early in my life, was that why study? Why gather all this knowledge? You just become a businessman, just open a shop, or start trading, and you'll make more money and live more comfortably. That may have been true earlier. Things are changing now. Today, technology is eating into those businesses like crazy. Amazons and Walmarts of the world are going to destroy a lot of retail trade. You need to be on top of your game, and going forward, trying to do well in your career, in your profession without technology is going to be ultimately more challenging. You should have technology as on your side. You should have technology as enabling you, whatever you do. Technology is going to enter everywhere. And technology indirectly broken down still means software and code in most cases. Of course, this hardware also involves code. Okay, so just to make sure I'm clear. So when you use any hardware device, see, finally there is code over there as well, right? So for your phone camera to be able to talk to your rest of the hardware devices. Again, I'm trying to use very layman terms over here.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
It requires code. Code is needed everywhere. Okay, there are millions and not millions, billions of lines of code being written by everyone. Okay, so I'm just tying it up together. That code is required everywhere. Code is being like everything. This entire conversation is powered by code. This entire machine you are on top of is powered by code. Yeah.
Interesting. There is a question that's come to us, is that what kind of a profile, like as a student, what is the student profile of someone who has an aptitude for coding? Is there like a set student profile that you would probably look at when a student is taking up coding? And how do they know that this stream is what I want to make my career in?
Right. So this is my strong opinion about, right? That in my personal opinion, everyone qualifies for coding in various degrees. And see, one thing you need to remember, software is very, very vast. Okay, there are so many aspects to it that in which area you're going to be good at is finally start to depend on your passion, your strengths. Everyone is also different, right? But there's an area where you can very easily fit, and you cannot know that till you start working on it and understanding it. A few very basic things. If you are very good at logic, right, then a no-brainer for you. But that doesn't mean if you're not super strong. Again, very few people are not good at logic. Okay, so but that will come. Analytics, mathematics, those are good. Computer science is built on mathematics. Okay, they are actually fundamentally solving some of the complex problems involves computer science and mathematics. By the way, you should all remember, computer science is not coding. Coding is not computer science. Very, very different. That's why I wanted to ensure you are aware of that. Computer science is a different field together, right? In fact, you can do computer science without coding, theoretically, and you can do coding without computer science. But what I'm trying to answer right now is the coding part first and computer science part later. Computer science requires more of mathematics, more of theory, more of understanding of problem solving, more of algorithms and data structures and all that. Coding does require some aspects of it. But again, in my personal opinion, I'll never like to bucket or stereotype, because it's a strong personal belief that anyone can code. Anyone can code as long as there's logic. And that's, I like to keep it as generic as that. And then beyond that, I really want to emphasize that, you should start exploring various fields and try to see if you like it. I don't want to force someone to move into coding personally. And they should start enjoying. And within coding, what do they like? Front end, back end, systems, hardware. There are like so many aspects to it, right? If you're very visual, you like graphics, you like front end, the front end is the interface which is facing the user. There are various aspects to it, right? There's coding of the front end, there's coding of the back end, there's coding of the hardware. Various people will be excited by various problems. There are different types of problems within that space. So it has to match to your personal preferences, passions, strengths, and that comes by discovery, by exploration, right? I'll give you my personal example. There's a very funny example, right? That ironically, when I was doing my BTech in computer science in IIT, next time you'll be surprised, I hated coding. Okay, that's the funniest part, right? That's the funniest part, and it's a good example for you guys. It's a very good example. And somehow, my first job which I chose out of IIT was supposed to be a non-coding job. I tried to go for non-coding jobs. In that job, they somehow figured out how to give me coding. And guess what? I loved it then. Coding in industry is very, very different from coding in a college curriculum or a class school curriculum. You're going to be solving real world problems in real world frameworks, and you'll be seeing an impact very well. You're going to be answering practical problems. You're going to be solving practical problems and coming up with practical solutions. There's a very different aspect to coding in the industry, right? That same thing can be achieved when you're doing something out of your own passion on a hobby weekend, or on your own personal projects. You try to build some solution, you try to build some small app which you want to address a real problem. That's when you start realizing those things. And I converted in industry, and I became a proponent of coding because coding in IIT in computer science was a totally different thing. There's a different aspect to it. So it's very difficult for you to qualify what you like, you don't like, till you experience the reality or undergo it. Till you don't write code, build an application, solve it for yourself, get the kick of having a real world application in the hands of real users, solving real world problems and seeing the impact that it makes. And then realizing, do I really like this? Is when you will start knowing things. Before that, it's all an exercise in theory.
So in a way, it's as good as having found a solution where a doctor finds a cure to a disease, or maybe there is some you find a solution to a puzzle. What you just said kind of gives that impression, that even if you're doing a coding job, you're finding solutions to answers, finding solutions and answers to people's issues and problems. And that kind of should also be a pat on the back. You should not think that you're sitting in one office and only on, numbers and, sitting on the laptop and screens and coding away to glory. So there is one more question that has come to us, and I'm going to talk a little bit of a background to that. That when you, sorry for my voice, when you talk of coding, and when you just do a random search or something, when coding games or something, Minecraft comes as a big first option, right? Like often I have seen that when you talk about coding and Minecraft, teenagers have theirs, not anymore, but maybe 2-3 years back, they would have their ears like up, and everybody knew Minecraft and coding to go hand in hand. Does the game really teach you to code in any way?
I'll be very honest, but I don't know too much about it, so I prefer not to answer that part.
Because the question that has come to us is, would you suggest, and is it wise, to introduce games that can kindle the interest among young coders? That is the question.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer answer. Yes. So,
and what games?
I don't know about that, unfortunately. I haven't explored that much. The only area I personally explored is Scratch, which is a very crude and rude, crude way of getting, a very early way of getting into coding. But to answer the underlying question, games as part of learning is good in any learning. Gamification or even using games or building games or any aspect around that. See, the point is, whenever you're having fun doing something, it should be encouraged. Why not? Right? It's more of why not. As in, I don't see why someone should be asking why. Why are you having fun? Right? Why are you enjoying this learning? Why are you enjoying building this? Right? Why not is the question I'd rather ask in this case. So it's a no-brainer. Yes, we should be doing. Unfortunately, I don't know too much details around Minecraft or other games. I've not been too much into it, so I'll not be able to give you inputs on that.
Okay. Bharati, do you have the next set of queries in your box?
I don't see her online.
Bharati. I think she
am I
is.
audible?
Yeah, you are. There you are. Go
So,
ahead.
Mithul, let's say there's a student
Yeah.
who has done a BTech in computer science and wants to get into coding full time.
Okay.
So, what are the specific job profiles the industry can offer him?
A BTech in computer science, everything is open for him. Everything is open. As in, it's him to choose or her to choose. You become, again, see, as I mentioned, there will be, if you look at profiles, there are software development roles can be divided into 10,000 other roles. I would rather now start understanding that in more detail if I'm a serious job seeker on what aspects and where. Otherwise, just sit for a campus placement for a standard programming software company and get into it, because sometimes you don't know. Even I didn't know. You come into the industry and start learning things, figuring it out. But again, there are various ways of branching this out: hardware, software, within software, front end, back end, within front end, Angular, React, within back end. So there's a various branches you can. If you have done a 4 years of BTech in computer science, you should already have a background of some of it. You should have already started realizing what you like, dislike, some portion of it. Again, it's also fine you don't know about it. In my personal opinion, try to find your passion and try to find what you like as early as possible. Otherwise, don't worry. Move into it. The good part is you're going to be in an overall industry which is growing and challenging and overall fun, in my opinion. So I can't easily answer that question because there's no simple answer to that. Everything is open to them. There are 1,000 job opportunities and types which are open, and it's for them to choose. Largely, of course, and then once they've made a choice, whether they're able to get it or not, it's then further depending on their hard work and their focus towards that option.
Okay, so
I'll give you an additional input to that. You don't need a BTech in computer science to become a software developer. You don't need any degree to become a software developer. Any degree. No degree is needed to be a software developer in the industry. My company hires for people with no degree.
Okay, this is interesting to know.
With backlogs from any stream. And I've gone on record and we've done that. As long as, in fact, I'll tell you a few things. Our hiring philosophy, and this is an alignment with a lot of thought leaders in the industry. What typically people are looking for are three things in a very different order. The first thing that everyone who knows what they're looking for is going to look for attitude. Okay, attitude. Nothing to do with your knowledge, nothing to do with degree. Number one is attitude. What kind of attitude? Kar sakta hu, I can do it kind of an attitude. If someone else can do it, I can do it. That's an attitude people are looking for someone in their team. Number two is aptitude in the order of things. Aptitude is the ability of logic and
right, yeah.
And the third part is skill. What is skill? Skill is Java, skill is HTML. And guess what? If skill is not there, that can be taught. That's the easiest thing to teach. Skill is the easiest thing. So your degree or your career, college is the easiest part in this. If you have a strong attitude and aptitude, you can get into software development. And this is not me saying. Google has gone on record saying that. Google is no longer requiring a university degree in forget computer science. Any engineering or otherwise, you can do courses of a few months to get in, or you can even get into a company which does boot camps like ours. We take open-ended people, train them, and bring it to the software world. right? Of course, if you have undergone a degree, you have prior coding experience in high school or college, you are at a much bigger advantage. I'm not saying that going to college is not useful. I'm not saying computer science degree is useless. I'm
Right.
saying it's not a prerequisite. It's not a prerequisite anymore. And so the order would be, of course, the best, most qualified, ideal candidate would be a computer science graduate, if not an engineering graduate. So today, if you look at most engineering colleges, all the companies go to engineering colleges and they hire across the branches. You'll do mechanical engineering, but you'll be selected by TCS for a software development job.
Okay.
That's the norm. That's known. This is not me speaking. This is not today. This has been for the last decades, couple of decades. When I graduated from IIT, half the people of I am as in engineering stream, I don't know the right percent, but more than 50% of the graduates. Okay, so a computer science will form a 10 to 20% of the batch, typically 10% of the engineering batch. But a number of people who will go into a software related job will be much higher than 50%, typically around 80%. So you do computer science, you do electrical, you do aeronautical, you do mechanical, you do whatever. Final job people are doing is software development. So if you have a choice, why didn't you spend the 4 years in computer science itself? Number one. So I was an ideal candidate from a qualification perspective is of course computer science. Otherwise, any engineering. Otherwise, anyone with. But what you need to do is, even if you, in my personal opinion, a 12th graduate can be given a training to become a software developer directly by a software development company.
Okay.
By the I'm not. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying do not go for the degree. I'm not saying computer science is not important. It's really, really important.
Yeah,
In fact,
but these are nuances of the industry, right?
nuances of it. And of course, there is a merit to it, right? A computer science degree will teach you some things which, as I mentioned, computer science is much, much larger than coding. Right now, what I'm talking about is coding and building an application. But tomorrow, when you want to build an algorithm, or for example, Google's results are based on PageRank algorithm. Okay, and then how to make that fast, efficient, and all that. Like, finally saying, right? You look at WhatsApp, right? What is WhatsApp? WhatsApp is 3 screens. Okay. If you're a software developer, anyone can create a WhatsApp from scratch in a month. One person can create a WhatsApp functionality in a month.
Okay.
WhatsApp is a few hundred engineers. What do they do? What do they do? They work on the problem of having to support a few billion messages going back and forth without breaking the network, without consuming too much internet bandwidth, without consuming too much storage. Right? So those are real problems, and that's where computer science comes into picture. That's where the complexity comes into picture. And I'm not saying computer is also necessary, but that's computer science course is all about that. Time complexity, storage complexity, algorithms. Good to be part of coding, but not necessarily part of coding. There are various aspects around coding. Right? If you're building one application for one person, why do you need all these problems to be addressed? But if you're building something for 2 billion people, 2 billion users, it's a totally different problem. Totally different one. Right?
Okay. Right. So, Mithul, we'll take the last question for today. This is from Gauranj. Quite a specific question. He asks, has the coding landscape changed in terms of the significance of the different programming languages in the last few years? Has there been any evolution?
So I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly, but programming languages are constantly evolving. So there are more number of programming languages constantly coming into the world, and the software development needs are constantly rising. Okay, and there are various parts to it and all that, but programming languages specifically are a layer on top of a lot of layers at the bottom, right? So programming language is just one way of going from one layer to the other layer, and it's not super important. So you just focusing on Java is good and great, but you understanding how Java works, how JavaScript works, how Python works. If you understand 3-4 languages well, then for you to shift to Ruby or something else which comes tomorrow, like anything else, is going to be relatively super easy rather. So in my personal opinion, programming language is a syntax. And once you learn how to use syntax, you can learn other syntax very fast. It's not too much of a concern. Early stage, of course, focus on one, get your strengths, get your understanding in one very well. But the number of programming languages out there has nothing to do with the needs. So when someone needs software, it's software. Right now, for example, do you know what Zoom is written on? Do you care? Does anyone care?
Right.
In how many languages can Zoom be written in? Almost every. I can create Zoom in almost all the languages in the world, right? Relevant languages. So without, like, to keep it simple, we are not taking the point out of context. Programming languages in that perspective are irrelevant. What's relevant is concepts and what the programming language is trying to achieve. Understanding a programming language in depth becomes important once you start doing it seriously. And being able to understand how they are functioning is important. So again, fundamentals, concepts, and doing things the right way. One thing I'd like to add is that, later down the line, which this is a personal passion, and this is where the entire company has been founded on, is something called clean code. And please try to Google it up. It's how to build software the best clean possible way in multiple aspects. And actually, one of the reasons I started Coditas was that because we wanted to focus on quality software development using clean code methodology. We are big time evangelists about it. And that is, we want to build stuff the right way, the clean way. And that is what we've been focused on from the onset. And I just wanted to add, so whatever programming language, from my perspective, is fine as long as you write it cleanly, clean code way. Okay, that's my take on it. Actual programming language does not matter, is my opinion.
All right. Thank you so much, Mitul, for your time and for agreeing to do this for us. We had been planning this for really long and it finally came to execution. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure to have you. And we look forward to having you again very soon. Any final words for people who are attending?
Yeah. So a repeat of the past. So please do remember, I'm biased. So some of my opinions would have been biased. I always recommend getting counter opinions, make independent choices, thoughts. I was not enforcing my view. I was giving my view from my perspective. So keep that in mind. But great. Thanks for giving this. I like doing this. And in case you need to know more about some of my thoughts, I actually blog a lot. I am very proud about my blog URL because it is one of the best URLs. It's called mithul.bid. That's it. That's my URL. Okay, so that's the simplest. My name is the URL, or you can go to my company page. I'm again, most of you are high school, so you wouldn't be active on LinkedIn, but I'm very active on LinkedIn. I post very regularly about various aspects around software development and actually around careers, people, culture, and all that. I'm very passionate about those areas specifically. So you can get a lot of my opinions out there. Most of it is on the blog, but blog is not a big blog. First it comes on LinkedIn, then I copy paste it on the blog later. So if you want the first source, it's LinkedIn. I don't do anywhere else. It's more because it's more of a professional, and my assumption is most of you would not be on LinkedIn right now. So that's fine. Again, it's just if you want to get more content, but do read. Internet is full of a lot of good content. Free content. I want to emphasize, you don't need to spend money. You just need to have the right thought in getting this right. Want to achieve knowledge, and a lot of knowledge is available in doing the right way. Again, I'll just give you a little bit of I think it's important. If you're even wanting to become an entrepreneur or make money, this is not a bad way. I'll give you my own example. I started this company 8 years ago with 1 lakh rupees total as an investment. 8 years down the line, without any additional funding, any external investor, nothing, we have more than 10,000x or maybe much more. We are doing 200 crores of revenue this year. Okay. And again, I want to make sure I get this across correctly. If there's one thing I want to attribute to is the thought around clean coding and building software the right way. And coding is something which has helped me, and it was something I was passionate about. Those things from being married together to make sure you achieve that. So if you have entrepreneurial dreams, if you want to do well in your career, everything, for me, coding is the answer. Okay, so I wanted to additionally convey the inspire you or misguide you, but whatever it is, I just wanted to get the point across. Yeah.
This was really, really helpful, Mithul. Thank you so much once again, and hope to see you again very soon. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us, and take care.